I mean, if you think about a fossil, it's a dead animal caught in a rock layer. And yet, if you have a fish that dies in your aquarium, it doesn't turn into a fossil. It doesn't fossilize. It's just eaten up and deteriorates and turns into food for other animals. And
So
yet,
what makes a fossil then?
in order to make a fossil, you have to have something die and be buried very deeply and very rapidly, and then lots of water flush through the rock layers as the sediment is turned into rock. And yet there are billions of dead things turned into fossils in the rock layers covering this entire planet. It's testimony that this entire globe has been deluged by an incredible flood in the fairly recent past.
And what effect did that have on you?
Well, I realized what I'd been told about world history couldn't possibly be true, because the very rocks themselves don't match the characteristics of these huge time periods.
But you also found out that this whole thing you believed, this theory of evolution, was false. Tell me one of the major reasons.
Well, I'll give you two major reasons. When you go to the bottom of these rock layers that were laid down underwater, they were all laid down underwater, you find enormous gaps between every very different kind of creature. You'll find single-celled organisms and then starfish with nothing in between. How do you do that? How do you go from a single cell to a starfish and leave nothing in between? It's like it was created. There are starfish and lobsters and coral and different kinds of animals, very different from each other, with enormous gaps. Second, we have very recently been discovering dinosaur bones that have totally unfossilized, soft, stretchy tissue inside the bones. Now, Sid, think about this. If your grandfather's dog died and he buried it in his backyard, and you came back 50 years later and dug in that spot, would you find any bones left, any soft tissue left?
No.
You wouldn't. It's because
it'd all be decayed.
All things that used to be alive totally decay. They turn back into molecules that totally disappear. Now, fossils are tissue that have turned into rock, but inside of that rock we find soft tissue. It can't be there unless those bones were buried very recently. And we have found dozens of these dinosaur bones with soft tissue in Montana, in Siberia, over in Europe, around the world, still with soft tissue inside of them.